What's up, everyone? I'd like to welcome you to the first video on my second channel. Today I'm going to be starting my first Iceberg video, and what better topic to be talking about than the wonderfully spooky and wacky world of cryptids. I have an 8-level cryptid iceberg that I've made myself, and today we're going to be looking at level 1, the tip of the iceberg. For those who don't know what an iceberg is, it's a very short look or explanation on a whole lot of similar entries, all related to a single topic. That means that this isn't going to be anywhere near a deep dive on any of these creatures. Instead, it's going to be short little morsels of information on each cryptid. I highly suggest doing some of your own research if any of these critters spike your interest. For those of you who aren't aware of exactly what a cryptid is a creature or animal whose existence is neither confirmed nor debunked. If the creature exists in the world of maybe, then it's probably a cryptid. My videos will not contain every cryptid possible. That would take years to research and make videos on. But they are the ones I found interesting for one reason or another. Level 1 is going to consist of only the best known cryptids, so I have to say I was surprised by a couple of the cryptids that routinely wound up on the internet's top 10 famous cryptids list. There's the normal suspects: Bigfoot, Nessie, Mothman, a couple that my kids made me include at the top, namely the Kappa and Jackalope, and then a couple that the internet seems to insist belong here, like the Mongolian Deathworm and the Pope Lick Monster. I've also added the Chupacabra, Fresno Nightcrawler, and Tarrasque to level 1 because of their internet popularity or addition to popular games and movies. I will warn you all, my son was very invested in helping me with this iceberg, so he will be taking 1 to 2 of the cryptids on each level and telling you about them. His cryptids will be in the middle of each video, and I hope you enjoy his youthful enthusiasm. We're going to start with my personal favorite cryptid, Mothman. The first known sighting of Mothman occurred on October 12, 1966, close to Clenendon, West Virginia. There were 5 men preparing a grave for burial when they saw a brown winged creature lifting off from the tiers nearby. They swore that this was no bird. It was something humanoid looking. There are many sightings of Mothman across West Virginia, with the most concentrated amount of sightings being in the TNT area near the old West Virginia Ordnance Works. Now, West Virginia Ordnance Works lays north of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and is an abandoned munitions department that dates back to World War II. During its operations, it manufactured ammunition and dynamite. Dynamite. All around this facility is mostly forest, with numerous grassy areas and thick concrete domes called igloos that were used to store barrels of gunpowder. This area is also full of abandoned tunnels, mostly collapsed, sealed off, or flooded by now. The McClintock Wildlife Management now sits in this very spot. In 1979, the TNT area was labeled an environmental disaster after fishermen in the area reported chemicals that had been left to drain into the ponds, and by 1983, this place was among the country's most polluted sites. But on a cold night in 1966 here in the TNT area, 2 young couples found themselves face to face with the creature. Linda and Roger Scarberry were driving with Stephen and Mari Millette through the area when Linda noticed 2 large, glowing red eyes in the darkness beside the old North Power Plant and screamed. The eyes belonged to an amazing winged creature that looked remarkably human. 7 feet tall with folded wings. Roger's car stalled in the road for a second, and they observed the strange creature, realizing that this creature was no bird. Then, they were forced to flee for their lives when the creature pursued them back down Highway 62 to the Point Pleasant city limits at speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour. However, once they arrived in town, there was no sign of their winged pursuer. Roger parked on the outskirts of town, and the group talked about what had happened, deciding they actually had seen a bird, and in what would prove to be a traumatic decision, they drove back into the TNT area. Once back on Route 62, the group once again laid eyes on the creature, but as soon as the headlights illuminated it, it lifted straight up into the air and disappeared beyond the trees. Heading straight to the town's county courthouse, the group explained to Sheriff George Johnson and Deputy Miller Halstead what they had seen. However, the city police came back empty-handed after heading out 2 hours later. Press got a hold of the story the next day, causing others to come forward with their own experiences, both past and future. This was the beginning of a legend, and in the November 16th issue of the Point Pleasant Register, the public was was made aware of the strange sighting with a headline that read, "Couple sees man-sized bird. Creature. Something." On November 16th, Linda Scarberry was rushed to the hospital by her father, this encounter causing her to experience a nervous breakdown. There were many more sightings in Point Pleasant throughout the coming months, though many witnesses were supposedly harassed by members of the Men in Black, who warned them not to speak about their experiences. All of this led up to the collapse of the Silver Bridge on December 15th, 1967. Some people believe that Mothman tries to warn people about upcoming disasters. Others believe he is a harbinger of doom. Some of the explanations that have been offered up are as follows. Sheriff George Johnson, contacted by one of the original witnesses, believed Mothman might have been a large heron. Wildlife biologist Dr. Robert L. Smith has brought forward the explanation of a sandhill crane. Owls have also been brought up as a possibility due to the eye shine and the silhouette of an owl resembling a headless Mothman. Mothman has a festival held in his honor annually. Started in 2002 and held on the third weekend of every September in downtown Point Pleasant, located near the Mothman Museum and the Mothman statue. Mothman has also been featured in the game Fallout 76, the book The Mothman Prophecies by John A. Keel, a movie of the same name, and in the card game Yu-Gi-Oh! Our next cryptid also holds a special place in my heart. I often call Bigfoot my cryptid because he holds a lot of importance in the state I grew up in, Washington State. He's also Montana's resident cryptid, my current home state, and is important in several other northern states on the west side of the U.S. and in parts of Canada. Bigfoot, also known as Sasquatch, is a large and hairy hominid creature said to inhabit forests in North America, particularly in the Pacific Northwest. This creature has become a cultural icon, invaded pop culture, and become something of a subject in its own distinct subculture. In the scientific community, the consensus is that Bigfoot is a combination of folklore, misidentification, and hoaxes. But those of us who know better know that Bigfoot is out there somewhere. Folk tales of wild, hair-covered humanoids exist all throughout the world, including the skunk ape of southeastern U.S., the Almas, Huron, and Yeti of Asia, the Australian Yowie, and even more creatures in the mythologies of indigenous people. The moniker Bigfoot comes from an encounter in 1958 in Humboldt County, California. Jerry Crew, a bulldozer for a logging company, discovered a set of large 16-inch, 410mm, human-like footprints in the mud in the Six Rivers National Forest. When Jerry brought the news to his co-workers, many more stories of similar tracks, as well as odd occurrences like oil drums being moved mysteriously, were brought up. The logging company crew contacted reporter Andrew Genzoli of the Humboldt Times newspaper. Genzoli talked with the lumber workers and wrote articles about the footprints, introducing the name Bigfoot when referring to the tracks. He also talked about local tales of large, hairy wild men. Crew appeared on the front page of the newspaper holding a plaster cast that was made of one of the footprints, and Genzoli began to be contacted by people in major media outlets, including the New York Times and the Los Angeles Times. Because of this, the term Bigfoot became widespread when referring to these apparently large creatures leaving these huge footprints in Northern California. In addition to Bigfoot, or Sasquatch, there are many more cryptids. Some will have their own entries if there are enough differences to warrant them. This list includes creatures such as the Yeti of the Himalayan mountains, the skunk ape of Florida, and many others. Taking a break from the internet's best-known cryptids for a moment, we're going to take a look at another cryptid who's well known in a different circle of people. The Tarrasque is a creature that anyone who plays Dungeons & Dragons, like my son, will know quite well. The Tarrasque hails from the town of Tarascon in Provence, France. This creature is supposedly a massive dragon-like creature, has a lion's head, a turtle's shell, 6 feet with claws, and a serpent's tail. It is also purported to exhale poisonous fumes shooting out of his nostrils in thick vapors. Legend of the Tarrasque is equal parts terrifying, wholesome, and a little bit sad. People of Tarascon were terrified of the massive creature that wandered the countryside, eating the livestock and even some of the people who were unlucky enough to get too close. One day, a young woman by the name of Martha decided to go out and confront the creature. Leading with faith and compassion, she found the creature and approached it. The Tarrasque sensed her good intentions and didn't attack her. She led the creature back to the village where all the villagers were frightened and wanted to kill the beast. Martha, however, tied her scarf around the Tarrasque's neck and defended it. The village people were astonished at this change of heart from the beast and followed Martha's lead in being compassionate towards it. However, the beast knew it would never be able to live life as a captive and died in front of the crowd. Each year in late June, a festival is held called the Fête de la Tarasque to honor the legend of St. Martha and the Tarasque. It can be traced all the way back to medieval times and celebrates how compassion and faith can tame even the fiercest creatures. In today's culture, a sculpture of the Tarasque sits in the town. Tabletop RPG Dungeons & Dragons includes a Tarasque, spelled with an extra R in the game, which is a high-level monster termed a nearly unkillable monster. We're now going to move on to my son's two favorite cryptids on this list, one of which was added simply because my kids insisted on it. So, we'll start with the Kappa. The Kappa is one of my son's favorites, and my youngest's favorites as well, because it's a yokai, and both of them have watched Yokai Watch. Here's my son to tell you all about this strange creature.
Hello, Internet. Today we're going to the next cryptid, which is the Kappa, meaning the river child or river boy, Kiretaro. Are creatures found in Japanese folklore and Shinto. They are considered Senju, and hair-covered versions are called Hisube. These creatures are similar to the Finnish Naki, Scandinavian or German Knack or Neck, Ches, Falcons, Anscotty, Kelpie, and Japanese Hagabong. All these creatures are used to scare children from the dangers lurking under the water. Kappas are said to be humanoid in form and typically the size of a child. Their skin is scaly and reptilian, ranging from green to yellow or blue. Even with the reptilian skin, they are said to have ape-like faces and green hair. These cryptids are said to live in the ponds and rivers of Japan, having webbed hands or feet for swimming, and feet for swimming. The most oblivious feature of the Kappa is an indentation on top of their head that holds water called the Sera. That is said to be the source of their power. If this indentation empties of the water it holds, it is said the Kappa will be unable to move. Japanese folklore states that the Kappa are often very polite, which means that bowing to a Kappa is another way to stop it from attacking, as the Kappa will bow back and spill water from their head. Another way to escape the Kappa includes throwing a cucumber, which is said to be their favorite food, and they love it. And running from them and then you can run from them while they're eating it. These creatures' behavior can range from mischievous, like loud passing gas or looking up wearing skirts, to aggressive, such as drowning people and animals, or kidnapping people. If you're able to defeat a Kappa, it may submit to you, helping with farming or sharing medical knowledge. You can also befriend one by sharing cucumbers with it. At festivals, offerings of cucumbers are frequently made to the Kappa. As you can see, the silly and strange cryptids are the obvious choice of favorites for children, but next one can be even more so. The jackalope must certainly have been thought up to entertain someone's kid, as it's both cute and whimsical enough to catch their imagination. The jackalope, or the antelope, also known as the warrior rabbit, is a creature from North American folklore that's described as a jackrabbit with the antelope or deer antlers, and strangely, sometimes a pheasant tail. It's thought that the jackalope might be rabbits infected with the Schnupflomia virus, which can cause horn growths on the rabbit's head and body. The first sighting of jackalope has been reported to be in the town of Douglas, Wyoming, reported as such by the town itself, and they have a large statue of the jackalope in the town center that highlights the jackalope. Day celebrations each year in June. You can even buy jackalope hunting licenses in Douglas Chamber of Commerce, but you can only hunt them on June 31st from 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. In recent times, Colorado is the place to be if you want the best chance to see one of these mysterious critters. These creatures have given rise to some weird and enormous legends about their habitat, including a rumor that is a hybrid pygmy deer / killer rabbit. They're said to be shy until they approach and turn aggressive, and can supposedly run up to 90 miles per hour. The milk of the female is said to be the medicine, and they can supposedly intimate any sound, including a human voice, which is used to include preservers by uttering phrases such as, "There he goes, that way."
Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed my son's narrations of the Cap and Jackalope, but it's time I retake control of my video. I'll do so with another famous cryptid, the Loch Ness Monster. Back in the 1st century, when Romans arrived in Scotland, they found strange carvings made by the Picts, a group of fierce, heavily tattooed Celtic people. Most of the carvings were easily identified, but one, to this day, defies explanation. With flippers and a long beak, having been described as a swimming elephant, this carving also appears to be floating and has been associated with the Loch Ness Monster. There have been countless other sightings of a strange swimming creature throughout Scotland's history, the most famous sighting being in 1934 when a London gynecologist by the name of Robert Kenneth Wilson snapped a photograph of the supposed beast. This photo has been dubbed the surgeon's photograph and has since been determined to be a hoax. But Nessie is still one of the most famous cryptids in the world, and the loch that Nessie is supposed to reside in is on my bucket list of places to visit. Our next cryptid is a creature that I actually hadn't heard a whole lot about, but the internet insists is one of the top 10 most known cryptids in the world. I'm talking about the Mongolian death worm. This worm is native to the western or southern Gobi Desert. It is said to travel underground, creating waves of sand on the surface, which is one way to detect it. It's able to kill from a distance, either by spraying venom at its prey or by means of electric discharge. This creature lives beneath the surface and only rarely comes above the ground, often after rainfall, just like normal worms. These statements come from a 1987 book titled The New Conquest of Central Asia. The Mongolian death worm, also known as Algoi korkai, I think I said that right, is a creature native to the Gobi Desert. This creature came into Western interest because of Roy Chapman Andrews' 1926 book On the Trail of Ancient Man. In On the Trail of Ancient Man, Andrews cites Mongolian Prime Minister Damdin Bazar, who in 1922 described the worm. It is shaped like a sausage, about 2 feet long, has no head nor leg, and it is so poisonous that merely to touch it means instant death. It lives in the most desolate parts of the Gobi Desert. In 1932, Andrews published this information again in the book The New Conquest of Central Asia, adding, "It is reported to live in the most arid, sandy regions of the Western Gobi." Andrews, however, did not believe in the creature's existence. While this creature is seen less in pop culture, there are many instances of it inspiring creatures and monsters similar to it. The Mongolian death worm seems to have inspired, among others, the graboids in Tremor, the purple worm in Dungeons & Dragons, the Karthus sandworm in Dark Souls 3, and even the Arrakis sandworm in Frank Herbert's novel Dune. Now, we'll go from a creature not so well known in internet culture to one whose entire popularity comes from internet culture, talking about the Fresno Nightcrawler, also known as the Fresno Alien. This cryptid has been seen in Fresno, California and the Yosemite National Park, also in California. These 2 sightings were caught on camera, with 2 other claimed sightings, one in Poland and another in Billings, Montana. Shout out to my current state of residence on April 25th of 2020. This creature has been described as a thin, armless, white humanoid creature that resembles a billowy pair of pants with a head. In the security camera footage from Yosemite, there are 2 creatures, one being very small. The feet of the cryptids are easily seen, and there appears to be some sort of webbing between the knees and the upper body. Besides the viral videos of this creature that permeate the internet, this creature has been featured on a My Singing Monsters fan-made island, Cryptid Island, in the form of Fresnoir. Our next entry is another one that Google insists is a top 10 popularity cryptid, and this one I had heard of but wouldn't have added to the tier on my own. This is the Kentucky cryptid known as the Pope Lick Monster, one of several Goatman cryptids. The Pope Lick Monster does seem to be the most popular of the Goatmen. This beast is part man, part goat, and part sheep, lives beneath a railroad bridge over Kentucky's Pope Lick Creek. This area has been a central location to much tragedy and pain for many years. The bridge is about 100 feet high, 772 feet long, runs over a creek and a road, and carries a major train artery into the city. This monster is said to have a human body, goat-like features like horns, hooves, and fur, and and some references also speak of a blood-stained axe that it uses to attack its victims. The creature is said to be malevolent, luring victims onto the bridge through hypnosis or mimicry to a tragic end. Some reports state that these victims are hit by a train. Others suggest that the sight of this creature scares them into jumping off the 100-foot bridge. While this legend has been around for decades, no one knows the exact origin of the story. Some of the possible sources for this story are that this monster is an escaped circus performer who was mistreated and escaped after a train derailment. Or maybe it's a goat farmer who made a deal with the devil and became this travesty of man and goat who's haunted the bridge ever since. Possibly, this monster comes from an ancient Native American curse placed on the bridge because it was built on sacred land. It's one of the few cryptids with actual deaths attributed to it, mostly because the bridge it's associated with is a dangerous place for people walking on it. There have been multiple people hit by trains while searching for the cryptid, and this is one location that is not advisable to visit. And with that, we're on to our last entry on Tier 1. We have another of the very well-known cryptids, the Chupacabra. This is another cryptid, like Bigfoot, whose reach extends beyond borders, with sightings from South America all the way to the southern United States. El Chupacabra is a cryptid well known to attack livestock, which is where its name comes from. El Chupacabra means goat sucker in Spanish, and it supposedly eats chickens, goats, and other farm critters, as well as pets. It's most commonly found in the Americas, namely southwestern United States, Mexico, and Puerto Rico. There are two known types of El Chupacabra, the reptilian kind, the one called the true Chupacabra, and the canine kind, which are also known as the blue dogs. These creatures were first reported in Puerto Rico, where 8 sheep were found dead and exonerated. Investigators found 3 strange puncture holes in the chests of the animals, but could still only attribute the killings to a known predator, such as a fox or something. These deaths were linked by others to the strange cattle mutilations that had been happening in the American Southwest at the time. The most famous drawing of the Chupacabra came from the woman who first saw the monster, a woman named Madeline Tolentino. Through the end of 1995, there were more than 1,000 animal deaths that were linked to the Chupacabra, all resulting from blood loss through one or more strange puncture wounds. These sometimes came with eyewitness accounts of a creature that looked like a monkey with no tail. The descriptions told of a creature with large red eyes, long, snake-like tongue, fangs, and long spinal quills, and what may or may not have been wings. There were also sightings across Mexico and the US that told of strange hairless dogs that also sucked the blood of livestock. This cryptid is quite the pop culture phenomenon, with several sci-fi original movies, as well as other movies made about it, and it's featured in animes, cartoons, even as a character in the well-known kids show Phineas and Ferb. Alright everybody, this concludes Tier 1 of my 8-tier cryptid Iceberg. I may be doing each tier as its own video, or I may combine some of the tiers, but with Tier 1 being the smallest, I will most likely be doing each one as its own separate video. Thank you so much for watching the video, and if you enjoyed Tier 1, then make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the rest of the series and the other videos I plan to make after. We'll see you guys all in the next video. Thank you.